In regard to the tragedy in LA with the fires, the astrology correlation is the Mars cycle. I mean, there's a way in which you can also bring in Pluto, since it opposed Mars early in the year, but that was a better correlation to those two violent terrorist events that took place in the early days of 2025. Right now, the situation in LA is better explained by the Mars cycle, number one, retrograde in Cancer, which is a home and real estate sign, and is the sign of the US as a nation with multiple planets in Cancer as well. The Sun is there, of course, but also Venus, Jupiter, and Mercury. And Mars is in a retrograde cycle, which means it starts in the early December last year, starts to retrograde, but had already been in Cancer before that in the fall, pre-election part of the year. And so then reaches early December, starts to retrograde. Now it's retrograding to a point where mid-month it'll oppose the Sun. This is what Mars always does in its retrograde cycles. There will be a part of the cycle, you could say it's the midpoint, may or may not be exactly in the middle, but it's the place where Mars is closest to the Earth and opposes the Sun. So that intensifies the energy of Mars. And to make matters worse, it's also in another astrological condition that exacerbates, intensifies, which is something called out of bounds, which refers to where a planet is relative to how far north or south the Sun gets. The northernmost point of the Sun is the summer solstice, and the southernmost point is the winter solstice. If a planet happens to show up south of that or north of that, it's said to be out of bounds, which intensifies it. There are positive effects, or let's say potential positive effects for that, but this is not one of those cases. Here you're seeing pretty much all downside. And you could add to that that the US chart itself has natal Mars, square Neptune, and Neptune is linked to the US fourth, which is the place of real estate and housing. So you could say that a country such as the US is going to face this kind of thing from time to time. Damage to homes from Mars, Mars being fire, literally, heat and fire. Now there's also the fact that you could try to get in even closer and get a chart for the city itself, which becomes more difficult. I came across a couple of these, and I'm not sure that I can really trust them, especially the one that is published at AstroTheme, because the problem is I don't know if it was there before this event, and it looks a little bit too well correlated. It's a chart for 1781, which, if true, if it actually matched something that happened that far back in 1781, then the transiting Pluto would be at the near the icy point of that chart, which is the very bottom, which correlates with homes and real estate. And so I would add more correlation. But as I say, I'm suspicious until I dig further, because particularly when astrologers do rectifications, there's the danger that they try to make it fit. And so, to be honest, it's enough to know that we're in this zone in the broader cycle, meaning Mars being in Cancer, retrograde and out of bounds, is quite sufficient to explain what is going on. And it's not a great time right now, mid-January and into the second half of the month. It's pretty difficult, but we can add to this that all of this is also triggered in some sense by the lunar cycle, because right now the moon is about to go full. It'll reach its full point on Monday, and then it's followed by the Sun-Mars opposition. All of it is pretty challenging energy. On a personal level, it has a lot more potential usefulness, because whenever there's more energy, there's more possibility of insight, realization, and new energies. But admittedly, it's pretty challenging, and we know that this has to be true since, we look around to what we're hearing, on the political level from the incoming president, and all I can say is that it's pretty irritating stuff. Now, as far as where it'll go with the fires, I would expect it to start improving. In fact, it already has. It's just that because of this pretty lengthy swath, which is, let's say, the middle 2 weeks of January, we'll be seeing news about this for some time as they assess the damage and start to look for blame, finger pointing, etc. But thankfully it is getting, or seems to be getting, better, and yet the theme continues for a while. And given that the full moon is coming on Monday, and the fact that the Sun-Mars opposition is about 5 days from now, don't be surprised if more things happen between now and then that are not especially pleasant.